Stream is live. All right, let's go. Let's go. Let's go. We are about to go live all over the world. Steve, if you want to share this out, check your or check my Facebook. There we go. We're live all over the world, Steve. We're all over the world as we talk to Scotland's finest entrepreneur. That's the way I'm going to call you. I'm going to build this podcast, and there's going to be no holding back with the hype and the expletives or the expellatives, whatever we want to call them, about Steve and the progress that he's made over the last few years, really. So welcome everybody. If you're just tuning in to the podcast, thank you. We absolutely appreciate your listenership wherever you are in the world, and we are counting down the days to PPM Live. It might be too short notice for you to come in person. Check out the virtual option that's now available. We're just a few days away from what is set to be the biggest event of our calendar, certainly. And we've got people coming in from all across the world, including Scotland. We've got people coming from Ireland, from the United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, all across the United States as well. So PPM Live is set to go this week. Friday the 20th is the big kickoff for PPM Live. And ahead of it, what I wanted to do is start catching up with a few people that are familiar names and faces on the podcast from around the Planet Paul community, if you like. You may remember a few months back, around about 12 months ago now, we spoke to Steve, who'd made great progress with his clinic. You should remember him because he was probably the first and only Scottish person that's ever been on the podcast. So for no other reason, you should remember who Steve is. And we like to have a little bit of fun between us English and the Scots. There's always a little bit of rivalry there, so we like to have a little bit of fun with Steve. But Steve's done amazing, and I wanted to catch up with him today just to get an update on his journey. So if you're listening to this, you head into PPM Live, you're going to see Steve. Will he be in a kilt? I think you should wear a kilt. I think at this event, talk about spontaneous. I think you should wear a kilt at this event, Steve, so everybody knows who you are. There you go. No pressure. No pressure, but I think you should play to the crowd, Steve, this weekend. People are going to come up and ask you where your kilt is this weekend. So if you're listening to this and you are on a plane,
you know what they say about a true Scotsman in a kilt?
come on, tell me. No, I don't. I'm not Scottish. Come on.
That's for you to find out.
All right. Well, I'll figure this out. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get you tortured all weekend. So everybody who is heading to PPM Live, look out for Steve McLean and go up to him and ask him either to take his kilt off or put it on, whichever you prefer. If he's got it on and you want it off, tell him to get it off. And if he hasn't got it on, tell him that he should at least wear the kilt at the Friday night party that we're going to have at PPM Live this week. So there you go, Steve. I've got you a little bit of attention for this weekend coming up, if nothing
Far
else.
too long to be wearing a kilt in Orlando.
No, there'll be aircon. There'll be aircon in the room. It'll be cold enough for you. It might be too cold, Steve, and that's maybe why you don't want to wear it. But that's another conversation for another day. So, Steve, welcome back. We are excited to see you this weekend, and again, we do genuinely know we like to have fun, but we're grateful of you coming over from Scotland to the event and just being part of it, which is really cool. So, give us an update. Tell us what's going on. Inspire people. Tell us, tell us what you've been up to. Obviously, a little bit of a backstory of how you started your business, and then how the last 12 to 15 months have gone for you as a physio business owner. Tell us.
A very brief background. Originally, I trained in sport and exercise science, I think similar to yourself, and then went into physio. Did my master's course in physio. Went into work in the NHS, which is the traditional route in the UK. Did the rounds in the hospitals and the GP practice, became a senior physio in that setting, decided it wasn't for me, quite rightly. And partly due to my commitments involving football as well, I left the NHS, set up in private practice, pursued that for a number of years. Thankfully found yourself around about 2019 into 2020. Just before all the craziness arrived, started to really grow and scale my business after we came out of COVID. And it was amazing going back to conferences again and meeting everybody in person again, being really feeling the energy in the room again, connecting, learning, evolving. And I think that was the theme last year, actually, when we were at PPM, and we had like James Lawrence and Damon John, and it was brilliant. Like, I really loved it, and I took a lot from that in terms of what we had to do to improve how we handled the first phone call in the clinic. And we've introduced a lot more of our follow-up systems,
Yeah.
and been much more on the ball with how we take a client or a prospect, a lead, from that first phone call right the way through the process, and give them choice, give them opportunity at every point of the journey to be able to serve them better ultimately. And we introduced like a new service. We spoke to the guys at Curamedics while we were out there as well. We introduced Shockwave to both clinics. I've got 2 clinics now, and I've got 10 staff, so we've been recruiting. We lost 2 staff as well halfway through the year. But one of the best things I learned this year was, obviously from a strategic point of view, was never stop recruiting. We'd been recruiting anyway, just because it was a good thing to do in the background, and we kind of problem solved around about April.
Yeah.
The first quarter we were flying, and we're having like our strongest start to the year we'd ever had. There was a lot of growth. We've moved into our premises, obviously, now that we've now been here just over 2 years. We own our premises, which is a great place to be. And as a consequence to that, we thought, like, let's do a problem solving exercise as to where can this all go wrong. And one of the biggest things we highlighted was maybe not having the right team, or somebody unexpectedly putting in a resignation that we didn't expect. And actually, we ended up getting 2 resignations within a week, which we really didn't expect. But because we'd kind of already been recruiting, we were able to mitigate that. We were able to recruit really quickly. And we now have a much stronger team, I'd say. Like, we've got an absolutely brilliant team. Really enjoy working with my clinicians at the moment. Really enjoy working with our front desk. Everybody's on the same page. Alignment's gone up. We've gone through that transitional growth. Our whole team's probably evolved. With the old football analogy as well, like, we've probably gone up to the Premier Division, and we've changed our squad a little bit.
So so just for context, how many staff now, Steve? How many staff are you looking after?
10.
So we're at 10 staff. Incredible. In how many
9. Well, 9 for me, 10.
Yeah, so we've got 10 people on payroll. So we've got a team of 10. Perfect situation. Perfect number where it starts to get really funky in a business, where you've almost got too many people and you have to start thinking about other leaders and 1 or 2 other people starting to help you. What have you done then? What's made the difference? I mean, I love all the phone call stuff, and I think all that's wonderful, the baseline things. The bit that always gets me, and I think what this podcast is about, is the leadership component. What have you done? How have you changed? What have you had to do to get that team to mold together, to be able to get 10 people all pulling in the right direction? What have you done?
Firstly, I reduced my clinical hours down to like 8 or 9 hours. So I just do 2 mornings a week, and that's really because actually I quite enjoy treating a few clients. There's some clients that are just great to talk to. Actually, I learn a lot from them as much as I enjoy like treating them. Like, they've got their own businesses and stuff like that as well. So I like to sometimes just pick other people's brain and meet other people, and it helps. I spend a lot of time now doing the marketing for the business as well. So it helps me generate ideas and remember what kind of conversations are actually happening and stay in touch. So I've got enough clinical hours to be able to keep in touch, but at the same time, it's no longer draining my energy. It's no longer taking up all my time. I rescheduled my whole diary for our one-to-ones and made sure I put them at a time in the day where it suited me better. I used to have them first thing in the morning, and like, people would maybe give us some of the problems. It would take up my energy. It would take up my focus. It would throw things at me that I wasn't expecting, and it would distract me. So now I actually realised that I didn't need much energy for that. So I put that at the end of my day, and I can deal with that quite easily at the end of the day, like jumping in and solving their problems. I'm much calmer as a leader, much more prepared to, not to fail, but I think I know that whatever happens, I'll figure it out.
Yep.
And so I'm much much more relaxed, I'd probably say.
So where have you got that from? Where have you got that from?
I think COVID. I genuinely think COVID, because, well, partly COVID and partly football. I'd
Yeah.
probably say football. I've learned a lot of resilience. I've learned a lot about decision making, and
So, for full disclosure, just to bring everybody into the conversation, Steve is one of, if not the top referees in football in Scotland. So soccer, if you're in America, football, rest of the world. Steve is arguably one of the top referees in the game in Scotland, and is obviously managing high-level performers on a weekly basis, if you like. So I'd love to find out a little bit more about that and what you've learned.
yeah. So like, you put yourself into a stressful environment every week on a Saturday in front of 50, 60,000 people, then dealing with a problem in a clinic doesn't really equate sometimes.
Yeah.
But then, like, COVID was probably the hardest time to be in business that you could ever possibly imagine. And then you come out of that and you come into a recession. And then you come out of that and you come into like an
A
inflation
labour shortage is probably
and
the
the
biggest
labour
challenge. Yeah.
shortage, with inflation running at like 10+% in the United Kingdom. And you think, well, do you know what? What can the world really chuck at me now
Yeah.
that I don't have the skills to cope with, or I don't have the network to be able to help me cope with?
Yeah.
So whether I lean on like people that I've managed to become friendly with through this community, or out with that, I've now got the marketing skills, the sales skills, the managerial skills, the entrepreneurial skills to be able to go, do you know what? I know how to spend my energy better, and I know how to protect myself and sort of manage my own energy to then be able to deal with whatever the clinic throws at me.
Yeah.
And I think that's ultimately the challenge, is that how do we protect our own energy so that we can give to our team? Because that's how you lead.
Yeah, I think people, I can see people coming into the chat. If you're on Facebook, by the way, I can see Rachel. Nice to see you. Tania, Jade, Tommy, Wendy. Some very familiar faces and names there. It's lovely to see you all again. Type into the Facebook chat. I'm happy to answer any questions, or we'll take some questions as well in Facebook. I think people massively, grotesquely are underestimating the biggest challenge, which is the people one for the next decade. That there is a shortage of people who are willing and able to spend money. That's kind of, that's never going to go away. You always wish that there was a bigger supply of people that would spend money with you, right? So the marketing challenge. But the new devil since COVID that people, I think, are still light years from accepting is the labor shortage. It isn't a Scottish thing. It's not an English thing. It's not an American thing. It's a thing, right, that we all have to face up to. So your recruitment has to be better, but your management has to be better and sharper, and your decision making has to be better. More times dedicated to recruitment, to I think even just thinking about yourself as a leader, which knowing you, I think that's what you've done. I think as I've watched you develop, you've moved from just thinking of yourself as a physio or a referee or whatever, taking what you're doing now more seriously, and the role that you've got much more seriously, which is actually people development. And that's the success, that's the leverage. I think as I watch you grow, you've stepped into a role and you've accepted the role. It's not just I've got the badge of manager of a business or CEO of a business. It's I'm actually willing to take the people thing seriously. Particularly, you wouldn't get to 10 and be still happy and enjoying your job if you didn't take the people thing seriously. You might have 10, but you'd want to stab everybody and hate everybody. And like, trust me, that happens when you get to 40, right? When you get to 40 staff, it's just like, where's the fucking gun? Who's got the knife? Who's going today? That's like your tolerance for that shit stops at like definitely a 40, and I can't wait to get to 50 and 60 because it'll be even faster. But I think that's what you've done to put a spotlight on I think your success. As I've watched you, you've accepted and stepped into the role of my real job is to think of myself as a leader of people, and I'm going to develop people, I'm going to create roles for people, and I'm going to nurture people, I'm going to help them be better. That's what I think from afar.
Yeah, you're probably right. I think when you have people on your payroll and you start putting onto payroll, you probably feel a bit of a responsibility for that. And I think that's something actually I'm quite proud of, because now we're supporting like 10 households. You're making an impact to other people. You've grown that from nothing. Like when I used to hire a room like just myself, like 2 nights a week, you've gone from that to this. It's kind of cool as well. But you do feel a bit of responsibility for that, but I think you can't treat everybody the same. You've got to recognise different personalities. You've got to be able to read people and be able to see what their strengths are, make sure they're in the right seats, make sure they've got the right opportunity to learn, make sure you're creating the right environment and culture, giving them the opportunity, but then it's up to them to go and take it. And then if they don't want to go and take it, then it's up to you to make a decision about, like, okay, what do you want to do about it? And like that's really all you can do, is give people opportunity, give them the right environment, create the right culture. I feel like I don't know if culture's it's a bit of a trendy word, but I don't really like it, to be honest. It's just about how you treat people the way you want to be treated. And then if it doesn't work out, then so be it. It's not your fault.
I think as people listen to this, it's very easy for somebody to read a book. It's very easy for somebody to listen to a podcast, and it's very easy for them to hire a business coach. It's very easy to join a mastermind, and the same information will be given to the same people. And this is how you have to treat your staff, and it's the scorecard, and you have to have a vision, and you have to give people opportunities and onboard them and all these things. And everybody I know all of that. But ultimately, I think what you did and what you've done is you've made a commitment to it by allocating the ultimate resource, which is time, to it. And that's why for most people, they get frustrated. They can't make improvements in their team or their culture or their org chart or the development of their business, even though they know the answer, right? They'll know that they need to do scorecards. They know that there's people listening to this who will have heard me talk about scorecards for 5 years, who candidly in the end stop listening to me because I keep talking about scorecards and they won't do scorecards. And that's what happens, right? They bounce around. Honestly, they bounce around. I've watched this for a decade. I've been in masterminds where they do this. They bounce around and they don't like the solution. So this scorecard thing doesn't work for me. Well, no, you didn't make the time for this scorecard thing. This marketing plan thing doesn't work for me. So I'll do something else. I'll go and find something else. And they kind of conceptually accept that a scorecard sounds like a good idea. A cash flow forecast sounds like a good idea. A hiring plan sounds like a good idea. And they listen to a podcast for 3 hours a day, in the car, on the way home from work, in the gym, on a flight, walking the dog, probably in bed falling asleep so they don't have to talk to their husband or wife. Just saying. Not that everybody's like that, just saying. But they never actually do the thing. And they'll get up tomorrow and they'll go back and they'll treat 40 patients a day or 40 patients a week, whatever, right? Like their calendar will be slammed. So in the end, they come up and it gets quite frustrating for people that they have the solution and they have the answer, but they can't seem to make progress in the business. So I'm, again, shining a spotlight on what you've done. You answered it at the start of the call, I think, today. You've gone to 8 to 9 hours a week, which has left you with 35, 40, however many hours you do, to actually manage 10 people. Not processes, not tags and Infusionsoft, and not the EMR or whatever, to manage people. And I think that is the difference in anybody that I've seen get stuck at 5 or 6 staff, is that they still try to manage staff when still trying to treat 30 hours, 35 hours a week, and they never get past 5 staff. It's always 5 down to 3, 3 up to 6, back down to 4, all relative, of course, but you've been able to bust through, I think, because you've dedicated the time to actually do the skills and implement the skills that you've been learning.
Well, like whenever I try and like take the next step, if you like, or break through the next barrier at each of those, because I've fluctuated for a wee while at that sort of 6th stage, like you mentioned. I think you've got to then just go, okay, well, what's the worst thing that could happen here? And that's like genuinely, what's the worst thing that could happen? Like, there's nothing that can happen that you can't then deal with. Like, if you cut your hours and it doesn't work out, well, you can increase them again.
Yeah.
Like, really, if you actually had to, if you needed to, I've got a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old. If I needed to put food on the table for them, geez, I would do anything, right? Like, I would even consider going back to the NHS, maybe. But like, if I had to do it, then you would. So
I think I'd go to McDonald's first, then the NHS. I must admit, I think McDonald's would probably be in my like order of preference if I had to go back and actually put food and water on the table for the kids. Yeah, it
I
would.
think
Even the
McDonald's isn't
drive-through,
far off in the staff canteen for some of
even
them.
even the drive-through in the middle of Falkirk in the middle of January is more appealing to me than working in the National Health System as a physio paid twice as much. Just saying.
Yeah, well, maybe so, but the point is, like, you would like no decision you make is permanent, and I don't think anything is so fixed that it can't then be changed.
Yeah.
So you learn much faster when you implement stuff, and you make mistakes and you do stuff wrong. Like, you start the scorecards and you use like a generic one that you maybe picked up off somebody else. You might start with that, but then it evolves, it changes, it like becomes related to that person's role. You have a conversation with them, you tweak it to suit what you need from the business and what you need from that role, and then you adapt. Everything is just an evolution.
Tell me, on the subject of evolution, tell me what you're up to outside of your clinic. So the clinic's gone really well, right? And again, if I'm shining a spotlight on you and what you've achieved and what you've done, it looks to me like you've took your business skills, you've took your ability to market, you've took your ability to hire people, just understand how a commercial enterprise works, and took those skills to another field that's still obviously within the physio PT profession to make a success of that. Tell me what else you're up to. I'm interested in this EMR thing that you're involved in, and just what you've learned from it, what your role is in it, and the skills that you've took as a business owner across into that
Yeah,
that new venture, shall we call it?
yeah, it's really exciting, and I think this is something that all of us probably, all of us get as we develop as leaders, as entrepreneurs, as business owners. Like, opportunity lands in our opportunity, like, becomes like attractive to us. Like, we see things, we see different ways to develop things, and during lockdown, when we had loads of time, if you like. So prior to lockdown, I had an employee, a girl called Kartiki, who was an excellent member of our team. She was over here doing her PhD in physio, and she'd heard me moan and complain about our EMR and our softwares and stuff, and how we were introducing Infusionsoft at that time, and she'd seen the evolution of the business going to having like 6 or 7 different softwares running. And I'd always said to her, like, it would be brilliant if we just had something that just connected the dots a little bit, and we could improve. And like, I know it's not perfect, but we're using this, and then we're using this to find that gap, and we're using this for this reason. And she then connected me during lockdown to a friend of hers, who then I became quite friendly with, a guy called Brij and Riaz, from India. And they are like tech geniuses who then set up a company called Ola, which is like the equivalent of Uber in India, right? And we then started to speak about, like, how can we impact healthcare? How can we develop EMR and utilize AI, which was just really developing at that stage,
Yeah.
And build a software effectively to help clinics modernize, become more efficient, like run better systems, grow and scale more efficiently with better profit, and just make life easier. There's 2 things I remember you saying. It's what you do in the dark is what,
Yeah.
like people then see when somebody
20
switches on
years
the light.
later.
And this is probably getting to that point. This started 2 years ago when we had loads of time. So the opportunity came with having a year in the house, basically, and starting to develop these ideas, and in terms of how to really build, like I don't think any of us have ever had an EMR in our clinics where we're totally happy with it, and we've been promised loads of things. It's never really delivered, or it's quite good at that, but it's not so good over here. And
Yeah.
and it's never. We've always just kind of accepted what works and what doesn't work. And then, like, I've been on like loads of your calls over the years, and heard so many of our colleagues and friends in America complain about how complex the healthcare system is, and how it doesn't like how complex insurance process is and how much more difficult it is than it is in the UK. So we started talking to Bridge and we asked about how do we solve this problem, and we basically started to build a AI solution which incorporates like scheduling. The billing bit is the bit that's really exciting, the insurance verification. And what we did was a bit like what you also spoke about time management. Probably about, when did you speak about that? Maybe about 6 months ago, but you've probably done it off and on over time. Is that you can only really spend your time. Like, was it 4 different
4
ways?
things.
One is
It's in the
tasks.
book. It's in the book as well. There's a full chapter on it in the book, yeah, in the new
There we
book.
go. There we go. A shameless plug for you. There you go.
Well, if you own the trains and you can't kind of mention your own trains, then there's something really wrong. But I'm actually keeping the book launch a little quiet externally anyway, so we haven't even announced it officially yet. So I'll be doing that after PPM. There's only so many things you can sell at once, Steve. There's a lesson. Anyway, right, moving on.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So,
four things that you could do.
tasks are one thing that you don't want to be spending your time on. You want to be leveraging your time. And one of the best ways you can leverage your time is with staff, right? So then I started to leverage my time with staff, but then you start to do like almost like an analysis of your clinical time and go, okay, where does everybody spend their time and what tasks are they doing? And then how can we actually reduce those tasks? So like for the front desk that are spending loads of time calling insurance companies or dealing with insurance companies to try and sort out verification of like such and such company, how much is a copay, how much is it in network, how much is it in out network. Now you can just basically scan their card, boom, 1 second, you've got all their details. The AI then filters out all the irrelevant stuff and just gives the front desk exactly what they need and what they need to see. The system then allows you to do like a complete, almost like a live notes audit. So you can, like, one of the biggest problems with billing is that records aren't done accurately, or they don't complete the records on time. So the bigger the delay between a record being completed, the more time it is until it gets submitted to the insurance company. So the system then can track SOAP notes to a live dashboard, so the owner can very quickly see, okay, he's not doing his notes, she's not doing his notes. Boom, we can close that time gap. We can make sure we then submit it on a daily basis automatically, not waiting for like 2 weeks or doing it on a monthly cycle. Again, that shortens the time frame, improves cash flow. And the whole thing is just a little bit of AI magic sort of dripped in at different points in the process, but it is, the purpose of it is just to make life easier for PTs, easier for the front desk, and most importantly, easier for owners to be able to run a more efficient clinic without adding to the payroll. So effectively, it's like having an in-house billing with a bit of AI, but without having to add to payroll, because no longer do you need to outsource it to a company that's going to charge you 6 or 7%.
Give us the name. What's the details of it? What's the name? It's interesting.
Sprypt.com.
How do you spell it?
Spry is SPRY.
.com.
What? Sprypt.com.
Yeah, check that out. We'll continue to talk about that. What have you? What is Steve, the entrepreneur, the business owner, once the guy that was rubbing legs, stretching hamstrings, massaging ankles and sore asses and whatever else, right? So we've moved and evolved from that guy to the guy that now employs 10 people, owns his own premises, so he's in real estate, a landlord, even if it's himself, and is now involved in a global software business, and at the heart of that thriving business that's now in companies and clinics all across the United States and beyond. What have you learned? Like, what have you brought to that? And what have you got from it? Tell us a little about the experience that you've learned as a business person now, as you've evolved your thinking or your skills. What have you been able to learn about working with such a big business?
I think one of the most important things is how to think like an investor.
Yeah.
And think bigger than your wee world. Because when you start talking to people who are out with your natural circles and who have been exposed to businesses bigger than you. They level you up. They help upskill you. They help upskill on how to think and how to break ceilings and how to approach things from a different angle. And it's basically about how we think. Everything's about how we approach it and from what angle. How small perception do we have? Like Dan Kennedy's talk in the summer. When you go to the ocean, do you want to go with a teaspoon or do you want to go with a truck? Like, how do you like? That's just thought process. That's just mindset. And I think when you start to think like an investor or an owner, like I know one of the speakers this week's going to be Greg Crabtree. Like, love his books, like brilliant books. So I'm really looking forward to listening to him. But I'm pretty sure he'll be talking about like how do you look at your business as a sellable asset, even though I don't want to sell it.
Yeah.
Like, no desire whatsoever to sell my business, but start to think, okay, well, if I was to sell it, how do I make it more valuable then? Like, you've got to then think externally and then come back and be less emotionally involved in things. I think that helps.
Yeah, Greg's point as well, and Greg's been wonderful for me. He helps you to see, well, why would you want to build a business that's really well run and then never actually sell it? Like, that, it defeats the point, right? Because what most people do is they have a shitty business and then they try and get rid of it, and they've had 15 years of hell. But the point that Greg makes is, if we run this thing right and set it up to be sold as though it could be sold at any time, well, then you're going to enjoy running it. And because you enjoy running it and you're making more money from it, you can command more money from it because you're not really bothered if somebody takes it off your hand. And if you think about it, the most business owners at the other end are just sick of it and they want rid of it. So they'll accept anything. It's very rare that it's an absolute amazingly well-run business, because the business owner's just sick of it. It's like, take it off my hands. It's in distress. You can have the cash flow, you can have the whatever, but there's very little profit in it because it hasn't been run. It hasn't been run right. So the thinking is, build it as though you're going to sell it. And then you get to the point of being able to sell it, and you either command a stupidly high price, in which case nobody would take it off you because it wouldn't be worth it to them, but it would be, it would be to you. So I think a change in the way that you think about business and life in general that makes the difference.
I couldn't agree more. It's genuinely about how you think about things and being prepared to try things and take a little bit of a risk. Like, you've got to go for things. You've got to attack life, don't you? Like, you've got to there's some things, some opportunities you get and you go, why would you not? Why would you not try them? Like, why would you not take that leap of faith and then back yourself to try and learn and figure it out?
The only reason that people don't, and again, shameless plug for the book, people are fearful of how they appear in the eyes of other people as a result of failure. So it's not. So when you really analyze what goes on, you're not bothered about the mistake. Like, we all fuck up things and we all get things wrong and we all hire somebody that turns out to be bad, or we all start something that was rubbish or whatever, right? We're not really that asked about that, right? Hopefully there's no damage. But the problem is when you have to explain to somebody that you screwed up, or that somebody's had an opinion on it that you didn't want them to have an opinion on, or you didn't want them to find out. It's how you feel about the prying eyes. If you have to go home to your wife and tell your wife that you've messed up, right? Messing up's one thing, then having to tell your wife that you got this thing wrong, right? That's the problem. Telling your mum or your dad that you got it wrong is the real problem. So it's not the thing that you do. When you get your head around, it's the set of eyes on you, and you can kind of eradicate that. Then you can start to, I think, you show me a successful entrepreneur that just keeps moving. They don't give a shit what anybody thinks. It's next.
I think I figured that out on a Saturday afternoon. I managed to piss off half the school every week and not give a
but again, right? Look how you've developed
it.
That's
a great analogy, because like the press will criticise the decision. I've made plenty of mistakes in my career, and I'll make plenty more going forward. But the press will criticise you. You'll get criticised internally. You'll get slaughtered by the fans. You'll get booed coming out of the stadium in front of 60,000 people.
Yeah.
You come home and you're probably not in the best mood, right? But you get up and you go again the next day, and you want to do it all over again. If you build that resilience through going through those sort of harder moments and having those scars or those wounds or whatever from making mistakes, just makes you more resilient.
Yeah.
It makes you stronger. And
I think
really
what they've got, a lot of people, so again, even listening to this, watching this right now, there's people doing okay in their businesses, okay in their lives, very nice, right? Very nice salaries, good take homes, 6 figures in the US, 50, 60, 70 grand in the UK, lovely salaries that you can have a wonderful life on, but secretly want to do more. And the problem is they've got an identity of who they are, and then they have to risk that. They have to make mistakes, because at this point in their life, there's a physio listening to this right now. I'll probably get an email, who for 20 years has been a master of his or her craft, right? And what that means is they've just nailed it. They've always been successful. They've always had good results for patients. They've always had people say good things about them. But now they're bored shitless. They're 45-year-old now. They're bored shitless. The money's there, the success is there, but they're absolutely bored shitless. And now what they have to do is risk being unsuccessful in marketing. They have to risk being unsuccessful in recruitment. They have to risk being unsuccessful in starting a wellness program. They have to risk being unsuccessful in numerous other areas, right? For progress to happen, I have to be able to risk being unsuccessful, which is really difficult if I've sat in a seat and my identity's been that I'm a successful physio. That's half the problem. In fact, 99% of people listening to this right now, that's what they're going through. They are successful. That's the problem. They have to risk being unsuccessful. And then they have to explain to Sally at home or Auntie or whoever that they fucked something up, or they didn't get it right, or the cash flow short this month because they've risked a few things. That's the bit that they can't live with. And then they can't move on until they accept that somebody like you or I were able to look at something and go, fuck it, if we get this wrong, pick ourselves back up, off we go. And yeah, do we get 8 wrong? Probably, but you get the 2 right, boom, and off you go. And that's the bit that is the success. And that's the bit that people see. But then they don't necessarily see that you've had to have the fear and the doubt and the worry about making a mistake or being judged or not having money that month or whatever. And I think that's why entrepreneurship is such a wonderful game, and rewards are very much deserved for business owners and entrepreneurs. Never mind the other way around of we're lucky or we're greedy or whatever. It's the fucking complete opposite is true. The risks that you have to take and the shit that you have to deal with and the crap that you have to go through, it's everything that you get is well deserved for that reason, that you're taking big risks all the time, and that's in the end what makes you different from everybody else. All things being equal, that's the thing that is probably keeping. I think we get 3,000 listeners to this on average, give or take, every episode. 99% of them are swearing at me right now, kicking the phone, slamming it down, probably stop the podcast because it's just been identified what their problem is. They're too successful in the thing that they're used to doing, and the risk is over here, and they don't take the risk. It's why I applaud what you're doing. It's fantastic.
I think you've got, as you grow, like personally, then you can take more risk or not, but also you get more comfortable with risk. I think that I'm not sure which one it is really, but I do think you get much more comfortable with it. But then, as long as you're doing it from a place where you're genuinely trying to help people and you're genuinely trying to improve things and serve people and solve a problem, and that's where we come at it, like from like the EMR basis as well. Like we want to create like a customized solution for people, like, and have one that actually fits their business rather than their business trying to fit into an EMR.
Yeah.
And then customize it. It takes a bit more time. It's a slower process. And we've got to build it, you've got to test it, and you've got to try it, make sure it works, and make sure you're comfortable with it offline before we make it go online. But we've got to go through like a process, and we went through that with like 4 or 5 like test clients, if you like, last year, and to be able to get to where we are now with it. But we had to go through that process of developing it and finding it and getting to the stage where we could build it. And now obviously we've got like 20 plus like clinics. We've got lots of people in the US really utilizing it and experiencing the benefit of better cash flow, higher returns. And if you don't go and try to solve that problem, then nobody will solve it.
Yeah.
But somebody's got to go and solve that problem, and that problem is solvable. And now it's seeing that actually come to fruition is just, it's so exciting. And when you see the technology and the software really working, that comes from being brave enough and bold enough to see the problem, find out what the solution is, and then create create the solution. And that's what entrepreneurship is. I think, is when you can identify a problem, communicate it, and then put something in place which is going to solve it, and then have the courage and your convictions to go and try to do it. Like, why would you not want to do that?
I think the thing that I wrote down there is, I think in the end, you are, as I listen to you and anybody that is making progress, it's not so much that you get comfortable with risk, it's that you get comfortable with yourself. It's a slight nuance. So risk is external, risk is out there, and I can blame risk, right? But really what happens is when I mature up and I get really confident in myself and I get secure in myself and I get personal security, not just financial security, I get personal security, I can take more chances and I can take more risks. So I become a more riskier person, right? Because I've become more comfortable with who I am. So risk now is a lot more easy for me. So it's not the relationship with risk that I have to go and figure out. The relationship with risk becomes easier when I've got a better relationship with myself and how I feel about myself, how I feel about business, how I feel about other people having opinions on me, how I feel about losing money, how I feel about losing time, all of these things that people really haven't fixed themselves. Like when all is said and done, that's the thing. And it's like, well, I don't like to take risks. It's like, no, what you're saying is like you're very insecure, right? You're very uncomfortable with yourself. Like you care too much about what people think and all of these other things. Once you fix that and you master that, all of a sudden this risk thing, oh, this is easy. Next. And it just begets a bigger risk that you're happy to take.
Yeah, I'd probably I'd agree with that, a lot of that actually, because a lot of people. I'm currently sitting in the clinic at the moment. It's, I don't know what the time is. It's after 10 o'clock at night on a what day is this, Monday? I always
Monday.
try. And then I'm going to Orlando like later this week. A lot of people think that's just a wee bit crazy, or you're working too much, or like we've got these perception of what normal is or what you should be doing. But actually, like, I am very comfortable with myself. But I've got an amazing wife. I've got two amazing kids. I love spending time with them. I was at the beach at the weekend with them. We had just a great day hanging out together. I was at home tonight to read them bedtime stories, do all that. Like, that's just the best thing in the world. And there's nothing that I can do that's going to change how I feel about them or how they feel about me. Nothing. So, like, what better example can you give your children than to say, look, try your best every day, try to get better every day, have a go at life, have a bit of fun, go for it. Like, why not? Like, why would you not? I just don't. But it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody, and not every other people aren't so comfortable with that. But that, again, that probably just comes down to like years of having a mindset of like, just do something. Like, don't talk about it, just do it. Like, implement something.
There's a phrase I learned in Miami. It was don't talk about it, be about it.
Yeah.
Don't talk about it, be about it. And half the time, the best thing to do is not tell anybody anyway. Like, just do the fucking thing. Like, we don't need an announcement. I'm not a fan of, once you've announced it to the world, it means it's going to happen and all that shit. It's like, actually, you're more likely to be talked out of whatever it is. Learn to trust your own instinct. You don't need your sister's opinion or your mum's opinion or even your wife or your husband's opinion, for crying out loud. Like, you're running a business, right? It's yours. You can kind of do what you want in it, and that's the point of being the business owner.
Yeah, I think I was always kind of brought up as well, like where you sort of prove your worth, right? And I think society's changed a little bit now, and like the I don't know, like the can you say younger people? You still allowed to say younger people,
Steve, it's my podcast. You can say what the fuck you want.
but like
Send your letters of
they're
complaint
all,
to somewhere else. Yeah.
they're all demanding like, I get this and then I'll do X. Like, if you give me Y, I'll do X, right? Whereas I was always sort of taught like, if you prove your worth, then you can go and ask for it, right?
Let-
Do you know? And like, you got to show that you're capable of something.
So you're going to love this. I'm going to give you a sneak peek, right? I've got a survey. I'm actually putting my slides together for PPM Live this week for the session on A players, right? And the High Point people did High Point's a massive university over here, and they did it's all about life skills and various things, right? Really, really, very good, very, very brilliant business to study from a marketing model. And there, I'll give you one little thing from it. Reasons grads get fired in the first 100 days: 38% lack of self-motivation, 29% lack of emotional intelligence, 13% lack of coachability. Only 11% of people get fired because of a lack of technical competency. I think that just sums up what you're trying to say.
Yeah, I think you can't give people that. You genuinely can't. I think it's either in there or it's not. And
I think it's you used the word earlier. Culture is how we teach others like what's acceptable. And look around the world, for crying out loud. Look on social media. Look at the standards of people accepting living and debt, and just coming to work and not actually working. I mean, I've had a torrid few months. Once you get to 40 odd staff, it's nuts, because you got 20% all the time who are in the bottom, right? Who need to be moved on. There's been 5 or 6 that have needed to be moved on in the last few months, and it's just like it's insane how bad some of the work ethic is these days, of the actually wanting to come in and do a fucking do a good job, and it's night and day. You can watch one employee who comes in, it's like they're just the scare, the speed at which they do things, the tenacity, they give a shit, and then you've got on one breath someone who just wins you like fuck all day because they have to actually do something. It's happening everywhere, and it's like I said at the top of the show, it's the hardest thing is going to be the people problem for any business trying to scale. If you're relying heavily on people and their attitudes, it's taking longer to find the type of person that you probably want to hang around with.
Yeah, and I think when I first started interviewing and recruiting, I had a lot on skill because that's where I was most comfortable, and I knew the skills of a physical therapist.
Yeah,
and I knew I could ask them technical questions about how to rehab a tendinopathy, or like discuss how to do a subjective history of a sort of complex back or a hip or whatever. I could go into the nitty gritty of those situations and really find out what their clinical reasoning and their ability to do differential diagnosis and all that. But one of the most important things assessing is their energy. And that's not the easiest thing to assess in an interview when somebody's sitting there for 45 minutes trying to impress you.
Yeah.
It's not so easy to pull that out, especially when you really want to hire somebody because you've got an immediate pressing need or like problem needing solved.
Yeah.
Right. And I never really looked at it from that perspective before. Like when I was on the opposite side of the table getting interviewed, I was the one that I felt nervous going to it or whatever, but actually it's the person on the other side of the table's got much more of a need to be there than anything else. So like if you can identify the people who've got great energy and great personality and like can pass the pint test is a good one.
Would you?
Am I prepared to go for a pint with them?
Yeah.
Like as soon as they get past that stage, you go, okay, you're a decent individual. You've got like decent moral fibre.
So just for my American audience right now, are asking, what the fuck's a pint? I've had to learn this over the years. Do you want to go for a pint?
If you see a man in a kilt, bring him a pint.
It's a large beer. That's what a pint is. So we like to educate our audience far and wide. We're a global audience, so a pint is a large beer.
But I think if you can identify those individuals, they fit in, they learn, they adapt, and they do.
Well, I have a very special session for you this week. I'm not going to reveal, I'm not giving too much away, but I've got literally staring in front of me on a slide that says the 4 things to look for in A players. But that's all I'm giving you away for this weekend. That leads nicely into the survey from High Point University. So we'll have a good discussion. I think it's Sunday, my session on building A players. So you can look forward to that. Yeah. Right, Steve. Fantastic. I love your journey. I love your progress. I can't wait to see you. Where can we find out a bit more about your clinic first and foremost? What's your social handles? I know you're very active on the internet. What's the social handles of your clinic?
The clinic is optimalphysio.co.uk and Instagram at optimalphysio.
And Spry. So if you head into PPM Live this weekend, many of you are, we're expecting 250 in the room. Come and talk to Steve. Steve will be there, and he's more than happy to continue to talk to you about the amazing technology, software, automation, billing, just generally making your clinic more efficient. Software that he's involved in called Spry. It's Spry.
Sprypt.com.
Sprypt.com, where you can get all of the details, and come and talk to Steve this weekend. If you if you're actually in the room with us, you can come and talk to him in person.
Myself, Drew,
get a demo. Can they get a little demo while they're there?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, we've got loads of stuff going on. We've got a nice wee billing guide to give to you, which I think
just for my American audience, we means small. The people in New Zealand right now are thinking a wee guide, like a toilet guide. What's one of them?
I need to
Steve,
really.
This is a global community.
I need to think
the
globally.
little old Paul from Poor Little Hartlepool has to figure out all of these things that he can't say because everyone's just like, what the fuck does that mean? So
I know we need a translator for the next one. That'll really show how big we've got.
This is a marketing lesson for you. It's not a wee guide. It's a fucking amazing guide that'll change your life, change your practice, and sort your billing out and help you build a business needing less staff with more money in the bank. That's what that wee guide's going to do for you.
Absolutely. We've also, like, one of the most exciting things we've done is develop an RTM with using AI as well, which I think is going to be a game changer for clinics in terms of, like, we can use it as a lead magnet, they can use it as improving like patient care. But the analytics, I think, well, I know this is one of my passions, is the numbers and stuff like that. I do quite like it, but being able to do the business insights and have all those tasks where it's actually just hours spent by some of your team, like collating all that information to be able to present to you. Like, now it's just available at a touch of a button.
Yeah.
And it's really exciting. I'd love to show it to everybody. So if anybody's got 5 minutes spare and wants to come over and say hello to myself, Drew and Mina from the team as well will be there. We're growing. I know we spoke a lot about our team in the physio world, but we've grown a big team to support and to be able to deliver what we have. So we'll have Drew and Mina along with myself at the event, and looking forward to sharing with you something that can really help you.
Yeah, let's do this. Look, there'll be 250 there in the room this weekend. If you are listening to this and you head into PPM, obviously go and say hello to Steve, ask him about his kilt, and if he hasn't got it on, refuse a demo until he puts it on. Now I've got you, Steve. Now I've got you. So you heard me correctly. Just refuse to do a demo of Spry until Steve puts his kilt on. And secondly, if you're not coming to PPM, you're from around the world or America, you can't make it this weekend, reach out to Steve. Best way to reach you, is it just to go through sprypt.com?
Yeah.
Sprypt, and ask for a demo with Steve, the man in the kilt. When they say you book your time for your demo, so I want it with the Scottish guy with the wee guide who goes for a pint and who wears a kilt for your demo. There you go. Yeah. And let's take this one step further. I want you to wear the blue stuff on your face like him off Braveheart. That's what I think you should do. If I'm listening to this, that's what I would demand. Just say, if you want my business, if you want me to spend money with you, I want to see how much you love me. That's what I would say. And if you love me enough to put blue paint thing on like him off Braveheart and wear a kilt and have a pint and have a wee guide, then I'll have a demo with you, Steve. In fact, I'll have one. Sign me up.
I look forward to giving you one.
You're going to get so many emails from people asking for a demo from a man in a kilt. That could be your marketing. That should be you.
Make it happen. You can make it happen.
Yeah, the man in the kilt. That should be your new influencer handle, the marketing positioning of this thing that you're building.
All-in-one EMR and a kilt.
There you go. Yeah. Brought to you by a man in a kilt. That's the tagline. Yeah. Right, fantastic. Thank you, Steve. You're doing amazing. And I hope even just sharing a little bit of your story has helped inspire a few people. Steve is incredible, doing amazing things, and has let off there, I think, a few little nuggets and secrets as to why the people thing, the risk thing, the just enjoyment thing. I always sense an enjoyment for life and for business, and just making the most of everything, which I think is a very special, very rare quality these days. So, Steve, I think you're fantastic. You're doing amazing. Can't wait to see you on Thursday at the hotel. We'll have some fun.
I look forward to catching up with you, and thanks for all your support as well,
Always,
and guidance. Always appreciate.
always, always. All right. See you soon. Thanks, Steve. See you soon.
Cool.
Cheers,
Yeah.
guys.